Everyone faces a certain amount of danger in their lives. Some have jobs in which dangers are evident and enjoy the challenge of confronting it. To them, it's obvious where the danger zone is. But others don't realize that they too are in the danger zone. They become insensitive to the hazards of the job and assume a complacent attitude. They don't realize that a mistake could have disastrous results. Professionals who work in the danger zone recognize the importance of wearing protective equipment to minimize the risk of injury or illness. Your job may not appear to be as dangerous as driving a race car, but because preventive measures are not followed, the percentage of disabling injuries in the workplace are many times greater than those on the racetrack. The amount of injuries in the workplace that could have been prevented by wearing the proper personal protective equipment is staggering. In this program, we will look at proper selection and use of personal protective equipment, the importance of proper fit and maintenance, and situations where personal protective equipment is needed. Before selecting personal protective equipment, assess the job. What types of hazards are present? Flying particles, intense heat, conductive electricity, falling objects, slippery surfaces, airborne hazards, or the handling of toxic chemicals. Every situation is unique and should be treated accordingly. Protective equipment does not make you invincible. Safe work practices must always be followed. Yet the proper selection, use, and care of personal protective equipment can prevent injuries. 70,000 disabling head injuries occur in the workplace every year. In 83% of impact injuries to the head, the worker was not wearing a hard hat. Your hard hat should be worn in any situation where there is a potential of falling objects, electrical shocks, bumps, and burns. Inside the hard hat, there is a suspension system that is designed to absorb impact and distribute the blow evenly throughout the shell. If worn improperly, the suspension system is ineffective. The suspension system should be checked for cracking, torn adjustment slots, fraying material, or other signs of wear. Clean often with a sponge or soft brush. Moisten with water and a mild detergent. This will extend the life of the helmet. When wearing the helmet, there should be at least an inch between the crown straps of the suspension system and the shell. This opening gives the helmet more time to absorb the blow and offers you more comfort. A hard hat should be secure to handle the movements demanded by the job. A hard hat that is too tight causes discomfort. Continuous exposure to noise levels above 85 decibels can cause permanent hearing loss. 2 million workers have a noticeable deterioration in their hearing. 25% of those have a moderate to severe loss. Ear protection reduces the amount of noise that reaches the ear. The two major types available are ear muffs and ear plugs. When wearing ear muffs, earrings and other jewelry must be removed since they interfere with the seal. Inspect for cracks in the seal. The headband must be adjusted for proper fit. Make sure the earmuffs form a complete seal around the ear. Before inserting earplugs, roll the plug tightly between your forefinger and thumb lengthwise to reduce the size. Then with one hand, pull your ear back and insert the plug into your ear canal with the other hand. Pulling the ear back decreases the natural bend in the ear canal and allows the plug to fit tighter. Hearing loss does occur gradually after years of excessive exposure. It must be respected on a daily basis. The damage done from long-term exposure to excessive noise levels cannot be reversed. Wear your ear protection. Every day there are 1,000 eye injuries in the workplace. There are 70,000 disabling eye injuries every year. Over 60% of the injuries occurred when the worker was not wearing eye protection. Other injuries occurred when the worker was wearing the wrong protection for the hazard. Eye protection can be divided into 4 categories: safety glasses, goggles, face shields, and welding helmets. Safety glasses are the most common type of eye protection. Side shields are strongly recommended to give more complete protection by blocking sparks or airborne particles that could enter from the side. Goggles give more complete protection by completely covering the eye. They block out flying particles and prevent chemical splashes from reaching the eye. Face shields are not a substitute safety glasses or goggles. They are added for additional protection to cover the full face. A face shield is not adequate eye protection by itself, because the hazard could get underneath the face shield and into your eye. Welding helmets must be worn to block sparks or flying projectiles from reaching the eye. They also filter out harmful radiation. Like face shields, welding helmets are considered secondary protection and must be worn with either goggles or spectacles. Choose the filter that gives the most protection without interfering with the task. Welding helmets must be inspected regularly for cracks or leaks. All forms of eye protection must be properly maintained. Scratched or pitted lenses can cause discomfort and are more vulnerable to shattering. Regular sunglasses or prescription glasses are not substitutes for safety glasses. They do not meet federal impact standards established for safety glasses. Prescription lenses must be made that meet impact standards. Always use the eyewear that gives you the most protection necessary for the hazard you are confronted with. Don't take necessary chances with your eyes. Respiratory protection must be worn when airborne contaminants and hazards cannot be removed by engineering controls. Respirators are classified in two categories: air purifying and supplied air. Their selection is determined by the hazards present. Like its name states, air purifying respirators prevent airborne contaminants from entering your respiratory system by filtering the hazardous air through color-coded cartridges. Cartridges may be changed to combat the different hazards such as particulates, gases, or a combination. Supplied air respirators provide a continuous source of clean air to the facepiece. This can be from either an airline or a self-contained unit. Only supplied air respirators can be used in an oxygen-deficient environment. Because respiratory hazards can enter your body and bloodstream immediately, proper use and care of the respirator is essential. One of the most important elements of respiratory protection is a proper fitting. Any substance, such as facial hair, that interferes with the respirator to your face must be removed. A quantitative and qualitative fit test must be conducted to select the proper sized respirator for your use. These tests measure the effectiveness of the seal of the respirator. In addition to the qualitative and quantitative fit test, a fit check should be conducted each time you use the respirator. Negative and positive fit checks are conducted by closing off the respective intake or exhalation valves and breathing in or out for 10 seconds. Inspect your respirator each time prior to use for signs of wear, stress, and cracks. After each use, the respirator should be cleaned and stored, preferably in a resealable plastic bag and out of direct sunlight. Protective clothing is necessary in any situation where there is a risk of fire, abrasion, exposure to particulate contaminants, or exposure to hazardous chemicals. All chemical hazards are unique and present different challenges for proper skin protection. Different materials are used in protective clothing to meet these challenges. This material is tested against hazard to determine its effectiveness. The ability of the clothing to hold up against chemical hazards depends on the following characteristics. Penetration. The ability of the material to prevent chemicals from seeping through pores, stitches, or other openings. Permeability. The ability to prevent chemicals from entering at a molecular level. This is the most dangerous because it cannot be detected immediately by the worker. And degradation. The wearing down of the clothing's physical properties, such as cut or puncture resistance. Other things to consider when selecting protective clothing is the possibility of heat stress disorders. Is the heat generated by the body allowed to escape? How does it affect permissible exposure levels? And what length of time will be spent in a specific work area? Decontaminate clothing immediately after use to protect your skin from the hazard. The decontamination process must assure that there will be no exposure the next time the clothing is used. Many manufacturers offer limited use protective clothing. This clothing is disposed of as contaminated waste immediately after the task. Over 160,000 disabling injuries occur to hands and fingers every year. Hands and fingers are exposed to many hazards such as extreme temperatures, abrasive material, toxic chemicals, electricity, pinch points, and mechanical equipment. Most general-purpose gloves are made out of terry cloth because of its versatility. Rubber or neoprene gloves are used to protect against corrosive chemicals. The chemical you work with determines which gloves should be used. When working with chemicals, make sure there isn't a gap between the glove and sleeve, leaving your skin exposed. Inspect the gloves regularly for leaks or other imperfections. Gloves should not be worn when working around rotating machinery. The fabric could get caught and pull your hand into the machine. There are 110,000 disabling work injuries to feet and toes every year. In 75% of the cases, the worker was not wearing foot protection. 60% of all foot injuries resulted from impact of either sharp or heavy objects weighing at least 65 pounds. Your feet are subjected to many hazards in the workplace. You need impact protection from heavy objects being dropped or rolled over the foot, puncture resistance from sharp objects, and proper traction to avoid slips and falls on slippery surfaces. The types of hazards in your workplace determine what footwear to use. Most industries require a boot with a steel toe for impact protection. The steel toe must meet federal impact standards. The top of the foot should be protected by a metatarsal guard in situations with a high risk of impact. Protective wear for chemical industries is usually made from rubber, neoprene, or vinyl. Each type of material withstands certain chemicals better than others. It is important that the boot prevents exposure by totally covering the foot area. A rugged cleated sole should be used in abrasive situations, and molded non-slip soles are worn for indoor slippery conditions. A professional does not underestimate the dangers of the job. Every job should be approached with the question, am I wearing the correct personal protective equipment? What could happen to me if I am left unprotected? Know how to use your personal protective equipment. If you have questions, ask your supervisor or safety professional. Properly maintain your equipment and replace it if there are any defects. Know and respect the hazards of your work environment. Wear the proper personal protective equipment for the hazard. Protect yourself from the danger zone.